This poem is called My Mother is a San Fransisco Summer, all right? My mother is a San Fransisco summer, and I mean that in the best way possible. She is 1 part beauty and 2 part strength, a cold breeze on a summer day just the way we like it. She is all sofrito and frying pan. She is the best Puerto Rican food this side of San Juan, and she loves with one hand open and the other hand a clenched fist. She did her best to raise a son in a city that is known for its particular brand of crazy. My mother is bursting concrete skyline. She is floating fragile fog, a bright harvest moon, gold and glowing, hanging low between twin peaks. She is my lighthouse on California's coast, always guiding me home. My mama just moved a couple of hours up north, but she raised me in San Francisco, Lakeview, at 358 Judson Avenue, where we learned to laugh when things got hard, where we fought over the last pastele, and where her door was always open with food for anyone who needed it. I was the only man of my mother's house even after I left to try and build something of my own. And we lived in that city long enough to call it our home. And my mom has worked at the same job since before she knew the names of her children. She has always been more root than tumbleweed. Planted firmly between bay views, mama is as loyal as sun-cracked mornings, as consistent as twilight. Every night after she prayed for me, she'd tell me that she loved me, even on those nights when I was too brittle with bitterness and anger to say it back. And that's why it's hard for me to see her have to move her entire life 4 times in nearly as many years. See, my mama would never imagine that her Facebook posts or Instagram stories had anything to do with the fact that her rent continues to raise beyond her means. But I have seen the typing on the wall, and it spells out words like urban renewal and mass redevelopment, things that are not new but instead renewed and renamed every few decades. An unnatural cycle of people of color being forcefully displaced. My family was evicted from our home the same year Whole Foods moved down the block. Right next to them new low-rise luxury apartments, right next to that remodeled and renamed bus stop. This is a brutal deja vu, familiar like waking up to an empty home full of boxes, familiar like the Housing Act of 1949, looks a lot like the blueprint of a new Southern market, looks a lot like the Great White Flight of the 1960s, looks a lot like Mark Zuckerberg moving into the Mission. My neighborhood is a chessboard checker with white flight, with bronze pawns being moved to make room for crooks and castles, and my mother is a casualty of her city's coded civil warfare. Hacking its way through our neighborhood, she is San Francisco, dividing herself into a Google Doc of .comers and startups looking to buy her off with free bus rides while they drive her farther and farther from her home. And I was standing on the corner of 16th and Mission, where it smells like decomposing corpses and burnt garbage. And I passed the same group of houseless folks every morning, and I swear I tried not to let them see me hold my breath. I wonder if they can smell the rotting flesh. Wonder if they see the doggy hotel across the street as they sleep under the freeway overpass, and if that irony makes them want to throw up as much as the smell of death makes me retch. I wonder if they notice that group of techies bar hopping in a Mission for the same reason I love scary movies, to get that pseudo feeling of fear while knowing you'll always be able to go home safely to your Hayes Valley oasis. And I'm standing next to my old high school on the corner of Divisadero, the once beating heart of the Fillmore known for jazz music. It was called the Harlem of the West before it birthed a blueprint for urban redevelopment. And now maybe Harlem, a budding borough of hypergentrification herself, should be called the Fillmore of the East for those same reasons. Both have been scooped out and made hollow. We are losing the place that created our culture, from San Francisco to Chicago, from New Orleans to New York, but I have learned that there will always be a difference between residence and community. Like there's a difference between where you sleep and where you dream. The same difference between development and displacement. And my mom's ain't perfect, and she would tell you that herself. But she cared for her family even when it cost her everything. And because of that, I can't let her spend the rest of her life worried about her rent rising like high tides, carrying her farther and farther up the coastline. My mother is a water-worn piece of ocean beach. She is sea green glass, smooth and buried deep, and she belongs in her city like gray days in the bay. And she was here long before the Twitter sphere, long before them squares dropped boxes, and long before sales forced her out. So before you decide to travel across your Silicon Valleys and leave your mountain views to become a new era of neoliberal 49ers raiding our land and rushing through our golden gates, I want you to remember that my mother is a San Francisco summer, and I mean that in the worst way possible. She is all broken cityscape. She is San Andreas earthquake. She is microclimate and Caribbean islands hidden beneath sewer streams, new money promises and the death of First Nation dreams. My mother is a tidal wave waiting in the water just under the bay, ready to wash your sins away. And if you don't understand where I'm coming from, it's probably because you're not from around here.